I walked out at 6:30 a.m. with a warm coffee in my hand and a cold, empty space where my squad car was supposed to be. No tire marks, no broken glass. Just an oil stain on my driveway and a bright yellow notice slapped to the concrete like an insult. Vehicle towed by order of Maplewood HOA. For a second I honestly thought I was still half asleep. 12 years in law enforcement detective for most of it, and I'd never seen anyone bold enough to touch a marked police vehicle, much less have it hauled away like it was some abandoned junker. I didn't explode, not yet. My brain did what it's trained to do, procedure first, feelings later. I pulled out my phone and started documenting everything. The empty spot, the oil stain, the notice, the case number, the signature at the bottom. Karen Mitchell, president of the Homeowners Association. And she didn't just approve it, she signed it like she was a judge. The crazy part is, Karen wasn't some random busybody who got lucky with a clipboard. She was the kind of woman who spoke in bullet points and legal citations, the kind who smiled while she threatened you like it was polite conversation. The neighborhood called her organized. I called her what she was, a Karen with a gavel-shaped ego. And she had a reason to hate me. 8 months earlier, on a rainy Tuesday night, I arrested her 20-year-old son for DUI after he nearly clipped a family in a crosswalk. It was a clean stop, clean evidence, clean conviction. But Karen didn't see public safety. She saw humiliation. So the moment she realized I lived across the street and I parked my take-home unit in my driveway, she didn't just see a vehicle. She saw a target and a chance to get even. By the time I noticed those first HOA letters, she'd already been building a case like she was prepping for trial. Formal notices on HOA letterhead, printed statutes, highlighted paragraphs. Her words weren't pleas or neighborly reminder. They were in accordance with and failure to comply, and enforcement action will be taken. I read the first one and laughed a little, not because it was funny, but because it was so ridiculous I didn't know what else to do. Then I took it to our legal affairs guy, Sergeant Hayes, just to cover myself. He read it, leaned back, and said something I didn't expect. Technically, she's not completely wrong on the civil side. Civil side. That phrase stuck in my head. Because I wasn't trying to start a war with a homeowners association. I wasn't trying to be the cop who thinks he's above the rules. So I did what I always do. I stayed calm, I stayed professional, and I followed the chain. Karen took that calm as weakness. Her second notice was longer. Her third notice came with photos time-stamped, zoomed in like I was some criminal suspect under surveillance. She even scheduled a board meeting and put my address on the agenda like she was calling me to court. I showed up in jeans and a jacket, spoke respectfully, told them I'd comply with whatever was actually lawful, and that I'd follow my department's guidance. Karen stood there with a slide presentation, I'm not kidding, like a lawyer delivering closing arguments. She talked for 90 minutes. 90. She cited cases from other states, quoted property codes, and used that tone. That smug, controlled tone, where she acts like you're already losing and you just don't know it yet. When the board voted, she got her approval. And I remember walking home that night, staring at the streetlights, feeling something I didn't like at all. Doubt. Not fear, doubt. Because Karen had done her homework, and I could feel the neighborhood watching, waiting for me to snap, waiting for me to pull rank. So I didn't. I filed an internal memo. I requested guidance. I waited for the system to do what it's designed to do. And that's the part that still stings when I replay it in my head. Because while I was being patient, Karen was planning. Sunday night around 11 p.m. I was asleep. I didn't hear the flatbed. I didn't hear the chains. But Karen did. I found out later she watched from her upstairs window like it was a movie premiere, phone out recording, documenting the whole thing like she was collecting trophies. She timed it so I'd discover it right at the start of my work week, when it would hurt the most. Monday morning there, I was standing in my driveway staring at that yellow notice like it was daring me to react. I called the towing company first. The dispatcher sounded nervous, like she knew this conversation didn't belong in her job description. Sir, we can only release the vehicle with written authorization from the HOA president. I could feel my jaw tighten. So you're telling me my police vehicle is being held hostage by a homeowners association? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence said it for her. I called Sergeant Hayes. He told me to file the incident report through official channels, request emergency reimbursement, and go retrieve the unit with department authorization. So I did. At the tow yard, the manager looked like he wanted to apologize to the American flag itself. 20 years in this business, he said, sliding paperwork across the counter, and I've never towed a police vehicle. But your HOA president was extremely thorough. Extremely thorough. That was the polite way of saying insanely committed. I drove the unit back home, parked in the same spot, and tried to tell myself this was over, that maybe Karen had made her point, that I could just let it die quietly. But when I walked inside, I sat down at my kitchen table and just stared at nothing for a long minute. Because here's the truth I don't love admitting. I felt defeated. Not because I'd lost legally, but because I realized someone in my own neighborhood had pushed me into a corner, used the rules as a weapon, and the whole community watched it happen like entertainment. And for the first time in a long time, I caught myself thinking, maybe I should just stop fighting it. Maybe I should move. Maybe I should accept that the Homeowners Association can make your life miserable even if you're doing everything right. I even thought, just for a second, what if I'm the problem? What if parking that unit here really is stirring things up? What if I'm wrong? And that was the scariest moment of all. Because I've stood in front of angry suspects, walked into violent scenes, sat with grieving families, I can handle chaos. But this wasn't chaos. This was calculated. Paperwork. Smiles, power plays behind policy. That's the kind of fight that drains you. Then my phone buzzed. It was Sergeant Hayes. Mike, Captain Morrison read your report. I sat up. Hayes paused like he didn't even know how to say what came next. He's not treating this like a civil HOA dispute. And just like that, something inside me shifted. Because I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't looking to teach Karen a lesson. I just wanted the truth to land where it belonged. Captain Morrison called me later that morning. His voice wasn't angry, it was controlled the way it gets when something crosses a line you don't come back from. Rodriguez, he said, this isn't a parking issue anymore. He explained it plainly. While Karen had been buried in property codes and HOA bylaws she'd ignored, something that matters a whole lot more when you mess with law enforcement. Criminal statutes, interference with public duties, government property. He told me he'd already spoken to the district attorney's office. Then he said, I'm calling her. And I'll never forget how calm he sounded when he said it like he was about to flip a switch. A little later, I got the update. Karen answered the phone like she was expecting an argument, like she was ready to recite her little legal dissertation and watch a captain back down. Captain Morrison didn't argue. He didn't debate her research. He didn't care about her out-of-state precedent cases. He simply informed her that criminal charges would be filed. And according to Hayes, there was this long stretch of silence on the line, the kind of silence where a person's entire world rearranges itself in real time. Karen finally stammered something like, Captain, I don't understand. This was a civil enforcement action. And Morrison hit her with the sentence that ended her reign. Ma'am, your civil authority doesn't override criminal law. Your research missed the part that matters. That was the moment her confidence cracked. She tried to salvage it, but it was on private property, but the board approved. But I consulted an attorney. None of it mattered, because when you order a tow on a police vehicle, when you interfere with an officer's ability to perform duties, you don't get to hide behind HOA stationery. By the end of that day, word spread through Maplewood like gasoline on heat. The same neighbors who used to avoid eye contact at HOA meetings suddenly had opinions. The same board members who voted with Karen suddenly started saying things like, this exceeded her authority and we weren't fully informed. Funny how fast people discover a spine when the consequences show up. Karen's emergency HOA meeting didn't feel like a victory lap anymore. It felt like a trial. She walked in expecting control, but the room had changed. People weren't scared of her legal vocabulary now. They were scared of being attached to her. They voted to remove her as president, 8-1. Only Karen voted for Karen. I wasn't in that room, but I didn't have to be to picture it. Her posture stiff, her smile frozen, her eyes darting as she realized she couldn't talk her way out of a collapse that was already happening. Because this wasn't a neighborhood dispute anymore. This was public record. Court dates, charges, a criminal defense attorney, a plea deal, and every document she'd so proudly written. Every memo, every notice, every highlighted statute became the evidence that buried her. I stood in my driveway a few days later looking at my squad car sitting exactly where it always sat, and I didn't feel triumphant. I felt relief. Relief that I didn't lose my integrity trying to win a petty war. Relief that I didn't let doubt push me into silence. Relief that when someone tried to weaponize the homeowners association like a personal revenge machine, the line still existed, and it held. And the lesson is simple. If you're going to play with power, you'd better understand the laws that actually protect it.